Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to all the students and grads attending this very timely and important panel. And I especially want to thank our great alumni presenters from our Alumni Professional Development Committee. It's a true testament to the dedication of Brooklyn Law's alumni. We're going to be discussing a wide range of topics on professionalism and career advancement in the virtual world we find ourselves in. Topics ranging from the challenges and opportunities during the pandemic, the job search in a virtual world, and communication both inside and outside of your legal employer, including networking, business development, and social media. After the initial 30-minute presentation and panel, we will have a 30-minute breakout room session where you're automatically going to be put in different breakout rooms, and you'll be able to dive a little bit deeper into a lot of the topics we discuss with many of our esteemed alumni joining us in these breakout sessions, and it'll give you an opportunity to network with them as well. These alumni include the actual panelists, as well as Thomas Welling from Counsel at Venable. We have Joseph Samet, retired partner from Baker McKenzie. We have Evan Azriliant, principal at S&E at Azriliant. And we have Gloria Greco, Bank of America, compliance executive, as well as Tim Ogerweiger, vice president and senior business development officer at Stewart Title Guarantee and Company, as well as David Berger, the founding partner of Allegaert, Berger and Vogel. And last but not least, Dona Fraser, our senior vice president of privacy initiatives at BBB National Programs. So I'm really looking forward and excited for this program. Why don't we kick it off right now? And we'll have each of the panelists introduce themselves, beginning with Colleen.
Colleen, I believe you may have been muted.
I think we're having some technical difficulties with Colleen. Well, why don't we begin with Stephen, and we'll get back to Colleen.
That's Colleen, everyone. Give her a warm welcome. So as you could all see, there's a lot to navigate in this virtual world. Welcome, everyone. I'm Steve Poppernick. I'm a 2013 graduate of the law school. Very excited to have been asked to participate in this. I think I'm as much an expert in finding legal jobs as I am in doing them at this point, having worked for a few firms over the course of less than a decade since I got out of school. Most recently on a sabbatical from commercial litigation to do some election-related work, which I can talk about as an aside, but principally a commercial litigator in the process of forming my own practice, which is exciting, and we can talk about that too. And I'm glad to see so many people here. Thanks for joining.
Thank you very much. Valerie Fitch.
Hi, everyone. I'm a proud member of the Brooklyn Law School class of '88. I'm also the current president of the Brooklyn Law School Alumni Association Board. I am obviously an attorney and also the senior director of talent development at Pillsbury, Winthrop, Shaw, Pittman. I started my career at Winthrop, Stimson, Putnam and Roberts as a summer associate and have remained there ever since. So I'll be talking about communication within your organization, managing assignments, online etiquette in this age of virtual everything. And I look forward to talking with you.
Thank you, Valerie. Roger, could you give a brief introduction?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Roger Griesmeier, class of 2004. I am a private equity M&A partner at Hunt & Andrews Kurth in the New York office and an adjunct at Brooklyn for, I think it's 13 or 14 years at this point. So some of you, I even see some familiar names in there. So it's nice to see everyone. Happy to do it.
Thank you very much, Roger. Colleen, do we have your audio working now? No, we don't. So we're going to actually start then with our discussion, and we're going to jump right over to Stephen right now. Stephen, right now, the job search, networking is always a huge component of the job search, but networking in a virtual world has a lot of different intricacies to it. So if you could just discuss right now the job search in the virtual world, and with a major emphasis on networking. A lot of my students are always asking me, how do I really begin the networking process? And then how do I deal with following up after I already have a great conversation with an alum or with a family friend that I'm networking with? If you could touch upon those topics and any nuances for the virtual world.
Sure. Happy to get started. And I think, sorry that Colleen's having some glitches, but I think maybe job hunting is a good place to start after all, because it's the first thing you do before you start learning how to do the job in this environment. It's funny because I think all of us are here to talk about various aspects of legal practice in a virtual world, but job hunting is the one that none of us maybe have done in a virtual world. I had something close to it a couple of, or early in 2020 when I changed from commercial litigation to go to work in a fellowship capacity for a nonprofit. So although there wasn't a traditional job hunting process for that, the onboarding process and the process of getting to meet people and follow-ups and building into a role was all there. So there were some interesting takeaways about that. I think the headline to Michael's question, though, is, how is this different, or what do you do to network and find jobs in this world? Is not really much is different. In fact, I before the panel, I polled a few recruiters that I have gotten to know well over the years, because they call you constantly to pitch you roles when you're working at a law firm. And I've gotten to know a few, and they all said things aren't really different. It's just happening this way now. The process of job hunting is what it was before. And that means you should be doing your best to put your best foot forward with grades and activities and clinics and experience. Doing all the things that you can carefully to make sure you're presenting yourself well on paper, like having a CV or a resume that is, flawless and grabs attention and is well tailored to the job you're looking for, writing good cover letters. All of that stuff is the same. Because frankly, all of that stuff already happened before you would meet someone face to face. Likewise, networking, and this is where maybe I'll hear what others' experiences have been on the panel, but it's almost easier because getting a contact with someone and then finding an opportunity to go out for a drink or to go have a cup of coffee or to sit down at lunch with someone, there are just logistic hurdles to that. And lawyers in particular, you're busy, you're in your office, it's hard to find a time to connect. Now it's become very normal to say, hey, can we get together for a virtual coffee for half an hour, fire up Zoom, jump on the phone, talk to each other any time of day or night that's, within reasonable boundaries. And people are living in a virtual world already. You can use LinkedIn to great success. And, I'm curious what other tools those on the panel have found that they're using to keep in contact with their networks, but email and phones, it's just normal now. And you can do it from the comfort of your home. So networking does, you'll hear everyone here say, network. I don't want everyone on, those of you who are still students or those of you in clerkships or in jobs, doing well and putting your best foot forward remains important. But there's now sort of no excuse not to make contact with folks and to do follow-ups and to make it personal.
I'm going to open this up now to any of the panelists just to follow up on the great advice Stephen just stated. But let's say a student had a good conversation with you and they had a great networking call with you. How do they follow up? How do they grow that relationship going forward? A lot of students ask me, I had this great call, but I don't know what to do next.
Was that to me, or are you looking for folks to volunteer?
Any of the panelists, if anybody wants to jump in there.
Sure,
David?
I'd be happy to.
Yeah,
Sure. I think I would really follow up on Stephen's excellent advice. I think it really hasn't changed. I think the key is follow up and communicating effectively. And after you've had, just as if in the old days, pre-pandemic days, you might have had coffee with someone, you kind of courteous to send and thoughtful and strategic all at the same time to send a follow-up note. If you have a good Zoom call, you follow up and you stay in touch, and that's the way relationships are made and nurtured. And you try to find something helpful to say to pursue the conversation. So if you had a discussion about something that seemed to be of interest to the person you met with, why not follow up with something you've read recently in the New York Times or wherever about that? That's the way you stay in touch. And you can cheat and you can say, gee, I met this person on January 15th. I'm going to follow up on February 2nd. And you give yourself a reminder. And the more you formalize that system in your own individual way, I think the more effective you will be at increasing your constituency, as it were.
Great, thank you for that, David. I'm going to try to come back to Colleen now, and let's go to the forest now before digging into the trees. What are the challenges and what are the opportunities that this entire pandemic does present to law students or grads right now?
Perfect, and I hope you can hear me now.
I hear you great. Thank you.
Luckily, we have a lot of computers in our house in the age of Zoom and remote learning. I was able to switch one quickly. So, for me, I think it's important that students realize this, young associates realize this. We are very cognizant at Pryor Cashman, where I am, of everybody's sort of emotional health and wellness. I think there's a real appreciation that everything we're going through is very hard, right? We're struggling to food shop, to how to exercise. Do I see a loved one? Do I not see a loved one? And really the emotional toll that is taking on everybody. That is always going through our minds with our associates. I have a Brooklyn Law School intern in my group. I'm always sort of worried what's going on, in their home and in their personal life. So I think, the challenges that we face are compounded by that, right? People are dying, people are very sick, we always are concerned about wellness. But I think in terms of the challenges, the environment that we're in right now, for me, there have been 4 challenges, not only myself, but the people I work with. It's how do you manage the distractions going on in your home, right? You're trying to go to school, you have significant others. I live with a parent, I have an 8-year-old, there's a dog barking in the background. How do you get the work done in the time you have to get it done during business hours and do it successfully, meaning you're doing it well, you're getting back to people, you're sounding professional at all possible times. But on the flip side of that is the other challenge is how do you create boundaries, right? Is what I find, because you're in your house, right? So I've been taking phone calls at dinner time. People don't seem to mind calling me on weekends. Nobody takes a vacation anymore. So you're dealing with, well, I'm working on holidays. I have clients who don't seem to care that Martin Luther King Day is Monday. So how do you not also drive yourself crazy and burn yourself out working 7 days a week with very long hours because you're surrounded by everything in your own home that you can't seem to escape? The other issue I think we've all faced and that I worry about, particularly with some of my staff who are young and single, is the isolation, right? By virtue of having to social distance, you're isolated, right? We're not grabbing cups of coffee with people. We're not having lunch with people. We don't have the opportunity to go to a conference or a cocktail party. We all missed our holiday parties. That isolation is wearing on people. And I think, you struggle with that too. How do you stay focused? I have somebody in my group that seems to just sort of go off the grid, I think, with the isolation and all the political issues that we're surrounded with and the turmoil that's going on now. So I feel that that's an issue. And then I feel all of this compounds, and sometimes it's hard to stay motivated because it is exhausting. Managing all of this is exhausting in one's life. And how do you take care of yourself and the people you're working with and you're dealing with, so they are similarly not emotionally and physically burned out by all of this. So those are, for me, when I really had to think about it, those are the 4 challenges that I think we're facing in our office, and I know personally. I don't know if the panelists have anything to add to that.
Or if any panelists have any ideas of unique opportunities that this time really does present as well.
So I completely agree with Colleen as far as the isolation, and what that feeds into as well is time management because of the no boundaries. And how do you I have found that setting kind of a schedule for myself Of course, that goes out the window when you get calls you're not expecting. But, this sounds really simplistic, but I think it's very helpful. Get up in the morning, take a shower, wear clean clothes, dress casual but neat, because quite frankly, you never know when you're going to end up on a Zoom call, and sometimes what you think is going to be a conference call ends up being a Microsoft Teams meeting or a Zoom meeting or something like that. And don't not eat. That is one of the things that I found I was doing, was I was just kind of plopped here at my desk, and before I knew it, it was 2 o'clock. I had a headache because I hadn't eaten anything, and I made sure I ran down the stairs and did that. But I think it's very easy to fall into habits that make it worse, right? So time management and setting a schedule for yourself, I think, should be, to the extent that you can, and then be prepared for it to go out the window. But I think it's a good way to start. But big fan of getting up in the morning and showering. Do not let it be 3 o'clock before you're out of your PJs. I have done that, and it's really not good. It was okay and kind of cute and funny the first couple of days or weeks, but after that, it was just really wearing. So you do have to discipline yourself.
Valerie, since we have your mic unmuted, let's stay with you right now. And since you're the Senior Director of Talent Development at a global firm, I'm sure you have some practice points on the best means of communication within a firm during this time. So, questions that always come up with my students include managing assignments, virtual meeting etiquette, and just generally interacting with partners and associates at a firm. Usually you could just walk right into the office next door and ask a question, or even have just some social time to get to know somebody at the firm.
Right.
How do you manage that right now in a virtual world for a summer associate position, for a spring externship?
Well, it's very interesting because, for instance, our first years are starting actually on Tuesday, and these first years were able to be at the firm when they were summers because it was over a year ago, right? Whereas this past summer, our summer associates never seen the office, didn't even, maybe saw it when they interviewed, but I've been sending people pictures, quite frankly. It's like, here's where you're going to be someday in all of these offices. So communicating becomes even more important because of everything I said before, not keeping to a schedule, not disciplining yourself, it's easy to not. And one thing that those of you who are just starting out your careers or who are students should remember, you have a real advantage because, certain generations at businesses and law firms do not know as much about the virtual world and social media and video communication than you do. So they have had to learn. And what I've been really happy to see is even our biggest naysayers, because Pillsbury started a wonderful program a couple of years ago called Pillsbury Anywhere, where if you wanted to work from home 2 days a week, they would set you up with all of your same toys that you have in your office. And I did that. So I was already in the office 3 days and working from home 2 days. But even the partners who were not in favor of that now have been forced to do it. And it's completely changed the landscape of communication. My advice to more junior folks is there almost is no such thing now as too much communication, because there really is an out of sight, out of mind issue now, right? Because no one is in the offices. So if you have questions, if you don't understand an assignment, or if you just want to communicate and say, hey, let's get together, the group that's working on this deal or matter together, let's make sure we do that once a week or twice a week. It's okay to be very forward thinking about those things. Don't wait for people to get in touch with you. That's advice we give people even in a non-COVID time, but it's even more important now. Quickly on etiquette, I have a door back here that's mostly closed, and there's a reason, because I discovered early on, if it was wide open, the cat litter box is right there. And so every time I was on a Zoom call, You would, if you were lucky, you would see my cat going in and out of the box. If you were unlucky, the box just sat there. But you have to be conscious of your background. And we've done, experiments and programming with lighting, and we have virtual backgrounds, which obviously I'm not using today. And again, as I said, shower and put on real clothes. I'm always a little surprised at the number of people who still aren't doing that. And I think part of it is because of the pop-up surprise, sometimes calls that you get. So always assume you're going to be on camera. It's as if you're a celebrity, right? Always be camera ready.
As far as taking assignments, and you brought up a good point, a lot of your advice applies to during normal times as well. For any of the litigators in the room right now, what are some questions that a junior associate or summer associate should be asking you when you give them an assignment?
Well, one of the questions that we always say is a good question to ask is if you're easy. About how much time do you think I should be spending on this? How often do you want me to check in with you? And even if someone says, oh, you don't need to do that, check in with them anyway. What format do you want this in? I mean, I was an adjunct legal writing instructor at Brooklyn for many, many years. And we always talked about that. You need to know your audience and what do they like? Now in the virtual world, obviously, almost everything is email, but there's all different ways to attach documents, and you have to be a little more sensitive, I think, to someone, want track changes done. And all I can say really is what we always say, which is ask those questions. What do you want? When do you want it? How long do you think it's going to take me? What format? What's the deadline? Because in situations like COVID, like I said, the whole day, Colleen's getting calls at dinner, 10 o'clock, but my firm has offices not only abroad, but in California, and nobody seems to understand, all of the different time changes. But never be afraid to ask a question, because the worst thing would be for you to go down, as one partner used to say to me, a rabbit hole, and it was the wrong rabbit hole.
Great, thank you, Valerie. That was some incredible advice. I would also add in there, what jurisdiction should I be researching as well for any kind of litigation type memo. I want to move over to Roger now. We just discussed communication within a firm. What about outward facing? If you could please touch on topics such as business development and social media use in the virtual world. I've seen some employers even nix candidates because their social media is not up to par. So if you could just touch on that. Thank you, Roger.
Sure. And I think you're right. I mean, look, this is a good news, bad news situation. It's only been maybe poked and prodded to the forefront more by the pandemic. Not that it's different. I'll tell you what I tell my students. The first thing you do when you meet a new lawyer or a client or anyone is you Google them. That's what we all do. Every partner I know Googles everyone involved on a deal immediately upon getting put on a deal. I want to know your background. I want to know who you are, what you're like, how you think. So those opportunities are there. You should be doing that, but that could be a good news, bad news situation for you. So if you have objectionable content or a public profile on a social media platform, I would highly recommend that you hide that and that you remove things from your teams and your college days. Thank God that none of us on the panel had college during the social media age, because I don't even want to talk about what the pictures might have looked like, or phones that take pictures for that matter. But look, it's very interesting. I know we only have a couple minutes, but I would highly recommend that you read a book by Scott Galloway. If you don't know who he is, he's a very famous professor and rabble-rouser at NYU Stern and an author. He wrote a book very recently called Post-Corona, From Crisis to Opportunity. And I think that's how the mindset is great. And that is, yes, this is all terrible. Let's talk about all the things that have been tough. But there are tons of opportunities. And I'll give you some easy ones in our world right now. A few of the panelists said, yeah, you got to be ready, Valerie especially, you got to be ready to get on a Zoom. That's true. And that's a little bit of an issue. But let me tell you how it used to be. Junior associates would sit on a phone call behind a phone or behind an email where, an email address where you'd send an email, dear sir or madam, to your client, maybe get a little client contact that way. Now your client knows what your face looks like, who you are, what your personality is. The client very rarely would have gotten that at a very junior associate level. That means you're a human to them. They may be less likely to ruin your life or give you a hard time irrationally. Those are opportunities, not only just not to have your life ruined by a client who's obnoxious, but also to form a real relationship. I think Steve said it, you got to find the time to go have a drink with someone and network and those things. You have a chance to do business development every minute of your life right now. Literally, you're face to face with people where you never were. I can tell you, I spent most of my time on conference calls and at my desk typing things up for decades. Now I don't. I talk to people every day, face to face, virtually. So that is your shot to make your mark much quicker, much earlier, and especially with people scrambling. And as I think Colleen rightly put it, I have an 11, just turned 6 and just turned 4-year-old. So let me tell you, life is not orderly at the moment, and there are absolutely no boundaries. I applaud any of you who can do that, but it is a 24/7 type of thing. You take those opportunities where you get them, balance as best you can. But when you're talking about communicating outside of your organization or even outside of your circle, the opportunities abound for you. Make the time. And then the follow-up, like David said, it's not just one outreach. Send an email to someone, try and do business development. You're already doing it, and you should continue by not only setting the calendar alert that David talked about in Outlook, in your contact card for that person, you should be writing whatever you learn from them. What's their birthday? If you know that should go in your calendar and pop up every year. So you always have an annual excuse at least to say hello to someone. What's their kids' names, their kids' birthdays? Was their kid at a soccer game? Ask how that went. Set a Google alert for news related to a client that they service. And then, or their company, if they're working for a company and they're a potential client. And then forward them the article and say, congrats, or hey, this looked rough. I hope you're having an okay day. There are so many technological ways that you can solve for your lack of experience, and maybe you're a smaller network at the moment, that are easy. And if you automate them, and the more diligent you are about automating them and doing those kind of consistent outreach and research efforts, it just gets easier, and you'll find your network it expands rapidly outside your organization very quickly. All right, I fit it in. I'm under 1 o'clock, so come on, that was 3 minutes. You're on mute.
Roger, if I could maybe piggyback off that, the point you're making about sort of personal contact, that's a real opportunity, I think, for particularly young associates and law school students. I know running my practice, I'm on the phone with people, right? I'm calling them about cases. I'm calling them about the work that they're doing. They have my undivided attention, and I'm getting to know them much better than I think I would even in the office, right? Because of all the distractions going around and in and out of people's offices and the time crunches that you're under, to your point, Roger, on and off calls and whatnot. I think it's a real opportunity for people that can meet the challenges to really show they're a superstar, right? If you can master these challenges of Valerie's point, time management and managing the chaos in your home and sort of the emotional stress we're going through, and figure out how to deal with that, this is your opportunity to shine. I now know very clearly in my group who the superstars are, who have been able to deliver and get it done. And I've had that one-on-one contact with them literally on a daily basis. I'm talking to everybody in my group. So I think that's one of the real opportunities that people can get out of this right now.
Thank you very much. And I think one interesting point is a lot of the practical tips that Roger brought up about business development really overlap with what Stephen was saying before about student networking and the job search. And that goes to show you the skills you're developing now regarding networking will serve you later on in business development once you're at a firm. So that wraps up the portion of our first half-hour panel, and I want to thank all of the alumni that participated in taking time out of your busy schedules. We're now going to break out into breakout sessions, and we'll delve into these topics in a lot more detail. And feel free to ask any questions in general to the great alum joining us today. Thank you.